Back to the piece called Jimmy Carter Was a Terrible President and an Even Worse Former President. Quote, on the international stage, Carter showed weakness, and America's enemies took notice. Does that sound familiar? Rather than recognize the true nature of the Soviet threat, he preached the defeatist ideology of a peaceful coexistence, and the USSR steamrolled into Afghanistan. Also under his watch, radical Islamic revolutionaries took over Iran, holding Americans hostage for the last 444 days of his presidency. Got defeated in a landslide. Quote, instead of stepping away, he spent the rest of his life simply pretending that he was still president and pursuing foreign policy goals, even when it meant undermining the actual president. Gave two examples. First example was his attempt to stop the first Gulf War, and then his nuclear diplomacy with North Korea that I mentioned earlier. In a run-up to the Persian Gulf War, Carter started out by writing a bunch of op-ed pieces in opposition to us going to war. Wrote op-eds, gave speeches. When that failed, he wrote a letter to the leaders of every country in the UN Security Council and a dozen other world leaders, making a direct appeal to hold, quote, good faith, close quote, negotiations with Saddam Hussein. If that weren't enough, 5 days before the deadline had been set for Saddam to withdraw from Kuwait, Carter wrote to key Arab leaders urging them to abandon their support for the United States, undermining months of careful diplomacy by the George Herbert Walker Bush administration. Klein writes, and I'm quoting, it's one thing for a former president to express opposition to a policy of a sitting president, but by actively working to get foreign leaders to withdraw support for the U.S. days before troops were to be in the crossfire, Carter was taking actions that were closer to treason than they were to legitimate peace activism. End of quote. Now to North Korea. 1974, standoff between us, North Korea, and the Allies over their nuclear program. U.S. was talking about sanctions. So over the years, Carter had received a number of invitations to visit Kim Il-sung. So he decided to go. Begrudgingly, the Clinton administration agreed to let Carter meet him, as long as Carter made it clear he was a private citizen and was merely gathering information, and then would report back to the Clinton administration. Quote, without telling the Clinton administration, however, Carter flew to North Korea with a CNN film crew and proceeded to negotiate the framework of an agreement. He informed the Clinton team after the fact with little warning that he's about ready to go on CNN to announce a deal. Put Clinton in a box, and North Korea still has nukes. Thanks for watching these clips from The Larry Elder Show. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment. More thought-provoking discussions are just a click away, so stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.